outlets, including the Weather Channel and CNN, were broadcasting live, and the National Weather Service officially declared a tornado emergency for the area at that particular time. The footage captured on video was terrifying. When the tornado swept through the loading dock in Lancaster, it picked up semi-trailers and tossed them hundreds of feet into the air like toys. The debris field was clearly visible in the video. Afterward, the large tornado split into several smaller ones, which continued to devastate the city. More than 100 airplanes were damaged at the Dallas airport in Texas as a result of a series of tornadoes that passed through the city area. According to representatives of Fort Worth Airport, the tornadoes were accompanied by large hail, which damaged 110 aircraft on the airfield. Most of the planes belonged to American Airlines and American Eagle. According to various estimates, between 6 and 12 tornadoes could be observed in the vicinity of Dallas and Fort Worth on April 3rd. The tornadoes caused significant destruction. The wind lifted cars and trailers into the air and tore roofs off houses. The destruction was extensive. More than 300 homes became uninhabitable, and over 1,000 were completely destroyed. Cars were scattered across the area. From some buildings, not only were roofs torn off, but entire floors were ripped out. House walls collapsed from wind and debris. Several prefabricated homes were destroyed to their foundations. Businesses suffered enormous losses, having been severely affected by the tornadoes. The roof of one of the warehouse buildings was blown by the wind into a water tower, destroying it. Uprooted and broken trees lay all over the city. Power lines were damaged and streetlights were knocked down. Debris from buildings was scattered for several miles around. 13 people were injured. The damage from the tornado was estimated at $400 million. During the warm April days, the eastern states of the United States were hit by the largest series of tornadoes ever recorded. The numbers speak for themselves. In just 4 days, more than 350 deadly twisters were recorded. Officially, a total of 321 people are considered to be deceased, of whom 316 tragically lost their lives on April 27, 2011, the most destructive day of this super outbreak. More than 2,500 people are listed as injured. The United States economy suffered $11 billion in damages. This super outbreak produced several tornadoes that went down in history as the longest-lasting, deadliest, and most destructive ever recorded on the planet. Next, I will talk about the 2 most destructive hurricanes of the super outbreak. The damage from natural disasters can truly be enormous, and restoring property and real estate will cost a fortune. And it's good if you have insurance, but less large-scale incidents also happen. If you get into a car accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to turn for help, how to find a competent lawyer, or how to get compensation if you don't have insurance, the company DTP America has helped its clients receive $21 million in compensation. Here, you will definitely get answers to all your questions. The link is in the description. In the afternoon of April 27, 2011, a massive tornado began, widely known as the Hackleburg tornado. It destroyed several towns in the rural areas of northern Alabama and then swept through the northern suburbs of Huntsville and parts of southern Tennessee. It was the deadliest tornado of the super outbreak. The tornado reached a maximum width of 1.25 miles and the highest wind speed was 210 miles per hour. The total 132 miles, making its track the longest in the entire super outbreak series. In total, the tornado lasted for more than 2 hours, making it the second longest lasting tornado during the outbreak. The tornado hurled cars as far as 200 yards from where they had been parked. At least one of the homes affected in Hackleburg was torn from the ground along with its foundation. At a brick house in the southwestern part of the city, the concrete walls were torn off at ground level. The wind during the tornado was so strong that it scattered some objects for dozens of miles. For example, jeans from the Wrangler factory were falling from the sky in Cortland, Alabama, about 40 miles from the site of the incident. Also, during this tornado, there was a recorded case of a tooth root canal rupture. This happened due to an extremely sharp drop in pressure and is the first recorded instance in history of a person sustaining such an injury because of a tornado. As a result of this tornado, more than 70 people were killed and at least 150 were injured. Entire neighborhoods in several cities, as well as rural settlements, were destroyed. In total, the damage amounted to $1.5 billion. Just like the tornado in Hackleburg, the tornado in Tuscaloosa began in the afternoon of April 27, 2011. First touching down at around 5 p.m. Central Time in Greene County, Alabama, the tornado quickly intensified. Eventually, it reached a maximum width of 1.5 miles and wind speeds of 190 miles per hour shortly after passing through the city. In total, the tornado raged for about an hour and a half. It left behind catastrophic destruction. Several television stations filmed the tornado live as it moved. This is one of the most well-documented tornadoes of the entire super outbreak due to its proximity to major metropolitan areas such as Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. The tornado entered Tuscaloosa before it had reached its most destructive state. But even then, the tornado tore buildings from the ground along with their foundations, tossed or completely destroyed cars, and simply carried some structures away. The tornado then intensified and moved into the suburbs. There, it knocked down every single tree and scattered them everywhere. It destroyed a large metal railway overpass, tearing out a 34-ton metal support from it. The tornado hurled it 100 feet onto a nearby hill. The pier was also severely damaged. There, the tornado either completely destroyed boats or tossed them at least 300 feet away. After that, the tornado weakened again and moved through a forested area, toppling more than 1,000 trees there. The bark was stripped from many trees after the tornado, and debris from Tuscaloosa was falling from the sky more than 20 miles from the city. Then the tornado reached Birmingham. There, it destroyed several neighborhoods in the city. Some houses were demolished down to their foundations, although the tornado did not carry their debris away from the base. Here too, the tornado's not very far. In total, as a result of this tornado, 64 people were killed and more than 1,500 were injured. In addition, the tornado caused more than $2.5 billion in damage. On the evening of Sunday, May 22, 2011, a large, deadly and destructive tornado struck the city of Joplin, Missouri. It caused catastrophic damage to the city and the surrounding areas. The tornado first appeared between the states of Missouri and Kansas. There it knocked down several trees and destroyed power lines. Then the tornado began moving toward Joplin. It reached the rural area and destroyed several farm buildings there before gaining its full strength. Then the tornado reached the city, where it intensified and began destroying houses and tossing cars around. Some cars were driven into buildings by the strong wind, while others were thrown onto rooftops. Then the tornado gradually intensified as it approached the city center. There, in less than 5 minutes, the tornado demolished several commercial buildings. After that, the tornado began destroying houses and hospitals. The walls of buildings either collapsed or were pushed into their foundations by the wind. The load-bearing beams of some structures twisted like paper. Cars were scattered several feet away, and some of them were wrapped around trees. Several heavy concrete parking barriers, reinforced with rebar, were torn from their places and thrown several feet. This required wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. In one of the city's medical centers, the destruction reached its peak. There was not a single intact window left in the building. The floors and ceilings were destroyed, as well as parts of the walls and the roof. The 9-story building was so badly damaged that it was deemed beyond repair and simply demolished. Vehicles in the hospital parking lot were tossed into the air and smashed to the ground beyond recognition, including a semi-trailer that was dragged 125 yards and completely wrapped around a bare tree. Documents and some equipment from the destroyed hospital were found several miles from the city after the tornado. The tornado reached its peak south of the city center. All administrative buildings and businesses were destroyed there. Entire blocks in this area were leveled. Several more houses were destroyed, and the bark was completely stripped from the trees. In some houses, even the driveways were damaged. Numerous vehicles were thrown several blocks away, and some homeowners never found their cars. The tornado destroyed regular homes, churches, nursing homes, schools, and universities. At this point, the tornado reached its maximum width of 1 mile. This happened in the commercial district. There, asphalt was ripped from the ground, buildings were destroyed, and many people were killed. The scale of the damage was enormous. According to the local branch of the American Red Cross, about 25% of Joplin was destroyed. Emergency services representatives reported that approximately 75% of the city was damaged to some extent. A week after the tornado, the mayor of Joplin estimated that 25% of the businesses licensed in the city were damaged or destroyed. In total, the tornado claimed the lives of more than 150 people, destroyed 4,000 buildings, and damaged 8,000 more. The total damage amounted to nearly $3 billion. Several tornadoes began on June 1, 2011, affecting the states of Massachusetts and Maine in New England. In total, 6 tornadoes struck the western part of Massachusetts and the western part of Maine. The strongest of the 6 tornadoes was named the Springfield tornado. The tornado struck Westfield at around 5 p.m. and destroyed nearly 300 homes there. 3 houses were declared uninhabitable after the tornado and were demolished. In addition, the tornado damaged the city's elementary school. It destroyed several classrooms and tore the roof off the building. The trees and power lines in the city suffered the most damage. The tornado then moved on to Ogawa, but the damage there was minor. However, a teenager was injured after being struck by lightning during the storm. After that, the tornado quickly intensified and reached Springfield. As it entered the city, the tornado crossed a bridge, overturning several cars and blocking traffic. Footage of the tornado crossing the river was broadcast live on several news channels. This was made possible by cameras atop the nearby Monarch Place skyscraper, which captured the tornado as it crossed the river and entered the city from the direction of West Springfield. In the city, the hurricane destroyed more than 500 buildings. Several people were injured because they were in their cars when the hurricane struck. The southern part of the city was hit the hardest by the hurricane. It was there that several historic buildings were destroyed. Roofs were torn off houses and brick facades collapsed. A large number of apartment buildings lost several floors as a result of the tornado. A few days later, they were declared unfit for habitation and demolished. Dozens of cars were damaged by flying debris. The wind was so strong that a billboard from one of the city's car washes was found 39 miles from Springfield. The tornado continued its path, destroying everything in its way, uprooting trees and snapping them in half. Thus, the tornado reached Springfield College, where it destroyed nearly half of the campus. All the windows were blown out, metal facades severely damaged, and large chunks of concrete were torn from the walls. The tornado caused enormous damage, leaving nearly 500 homeless. Hundreds sustained injuries of varying severity. 3 lost their lives. Damage was estimated at hundreds of millions of dollars. The tornado in Oklahoma was a large, long-lasting, and exceptionally powerful tornado. The wind speed in it reached 321 miles per hour, which is the highest tornado wind speed ever recorded in history. This tornado struck Oklahoma City on May 3, 1999. Its severity prompted the United States National Weather Service to issue a tornado emergency statement for the first time in history. The tornado quickly reached its maximum strength in the city of Bridge Creek, causing enormous damage to the city. Many homes were reduced to just their foundations or scattered concrete debris. Trees and shrubs were completely stripped of their bark. About 200 homes were destroyed to their foundations and hundreds more were severely damaged. The storm caused significant ground erosion, with some roads losing an inch of asphalt. Many cars were scattered throughout the area, and some were wrapped around trees and poles. The tornado moved along, alternately gaining and losing strength. In one part of the city, it tossed a car a quarter of a mile and turned a well-built house into a pile of debris. By that time, the tornado had reached a width of 1 mile. Then the tornado moved into Moore, where 11 people were killed and more than 200 were injured. An entire neighborhood of the city was reduced to ruins. Cars were lifted into the air and thrown by the wind a quarter of a mile, and several houses were torn from their foundations. After the tornado, I went to Oklahoma City. There, numerous industrial buildings, motels, and regular homes were destroyed. A railroad car weighing 36,000 pounds was thrown 3/4 of a mile. At the same time, the car was repeatedly tossed into the air. The tornado traveled 38 miles in the 85 minutes of its existence. It destroyed thousands of homes, killed 36 people, and caused $1 billion in damage. On the evening of Friday, May 4, 2007, against the backdrop of a tornado outbreak in the central United States, a large, powerful, and destructive tornado formed. It passed through Iowa County, Kansas, causing catastrophic damage to the town of Greensburg. At first, the tornado swept through rural areas near the city. There, it uprooted trees, tore up the ground, and destroyed several oil storage tanks. This led to oil spilling across pastures and roads. During this period, the tornado reached its maximum width of nearly 2 miles. Many farmers lost livestock, and buildings were destroyed. Next, the tornado reached the outskirts of Greensburg. There, it began to destroy everything in its path, including a whole row of buildings that were leveled to the ground. A school and many nearby homes were destroyed. When the tornado reached the city center, it completely demolished it, including many businesses and the city hall. Numerous structures were damaged due to soil erosion caused by the storm. The tornado completely destroyed the water tower, violently ripped out fire hydrants in the city, stripped the trees of all their bark, and even overturned railroad cars. One of the rail cars contained ammonia, which began to gradually leak out. So, a special hazardous materials team was called in to assist the city. After the tornado left the city, it began to weaken and dissipated. Its total path length was nearly 23 miles. As a result of the tornado, 95% of Greensburg was destroyed. In total, more than 900 homes and businesses were completely destroyed. Over 200 suffered severe damage, and 307 were almost untouched. After the tornado, more than 800 cubic yards of debris were removed from the city. The tornado claimed the lives of 12 people. 63 people were injured. The damage to the city amounted to $250 million. The tornado devastated the city's economy, virtually wiping out industrial enterprises, and people could no longer earn a living. This caused a significant outflow of residents. The population was nearly halved, and the economy has never fully recovered. Thank you for watching this video about devastating tornadoes. I hope you found it interesting and informative to see how nature displays its power. Let me remind you that safety is a priority. Don't forget to be careful and keep an eye on weather forecasts. Take care of yourselves and stay safe during severe storms. Subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. In just a few months of 2025, the US immigration policy underwent drastic changes that shook not only the country itself, but the entire world. A new president, a new course, new rules that threaten the fate of thousands of people. But what is behind this turn of events? Who wins and who loses in this struggle for security and humanity? And why now, just a short time after Biden's reforms, is Donald Trump once again changing course to tighten immigration policy? In this video, I will explain how the US determines the fate of migrants, what decisions can lead to turning points, and what exactly has changed over the few months of 2025. Prepare for important and sometimes shocking revelations. The new course of immigration policy in the USA. Immediately after taking office, the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, began fulfilling his campaign promises to tighten immigration policy. First and foremost, he shut down the asylum system for migrants from Mexico, stating that they could pose a threat to national security. Trump referred to a law that allows the president to suspend the entry of foreign nationals if their presence is detrimental to the country. Border Patrol officers are now required to deport migrants immediately after collecting biometric data without giving them the opportunity to appeal in court. This completely changes the rules, effectively closing the path to asylum for most refugees. Moreover, the new policy affected not only the border with Mexico, but also the coastal areas of Florida and the border with Canada. Some detained migrants are now immediately handed over to Canadian authorities. Additionally, Trump effectively suspended all asylum requests, except in cases where migrants can prove a life-threatening danger. Under Biden, migrants could apply through the CBP One app. But now even this opportunity has disappeared. Human rights advocates have already protested, stating that this policy deprives thousands of families fleeing persecution of their chance for salvation. However, Trump supporters are confident that strict measures will help protect the borders. Such a course by the US is causing serious debates. The question is whether this policy will persist in the future or if the country will return to more lenient methods. And why the current US president has initiated such a strict policy towards migrants. Let's figure it out. Joe Biden's immigration policy. The current policy of Donald Trump regarding the fight against migrants is a logical continuation of his policy during his first term. But in 2021, Joe Biden came to power, who had completely opposite views on this issue. When Biden took office as president, he immediately began to revise the strict immigration policy of his predecessor. On the very first day, he halted the construction of the border wall with Mexico, lifted the travel ban from several countries, and eased deportation rules. His administration focused on protecting migrants rather than their mass deportations. The Department of Homeland Security, under the leadership of Alejandro Mayorkas, changed the priorities of the immigration service. At that time, the focus was on combating violent crimes rather than deporting people for minor offenses. In the first 100 days, Biden even suspended deportations, but soon faced lawsuits from the state of Texas. As a result, a federal judge blocked this moratorium and deportations resumed. Biden also took measures to protect so-called dreamers, immigrants who came to the U.S. as children. He signed an order to preserve the DACA program and urged Congress to grant these people official status. However, his attempts to implement comprehensive immigration reform faced resistance and were unsuccessful. On one hand, Biden relaxed control, but on the other, he maintained some of the restrictions introduced by Trump. For example, he extended the enforcement of Title 42. This is a measure that allowed for the rapid expulsion of migrants under the pretext of health regulations introduced during the pandemic. The practice of expedited deportation of families to Central American countries also resumed. Meanwhile, Biden promised to raise the refugee admission quota to 125,000 people per year. However, in 2021, he upheld the record low limit of 15,000, which was set during Trump's administration. Under pressure from critics, the administration adjusted its plans, but the pace of refugee resettlement remained extremely low. Another important reform by Biden concerned the operations of immigration and customs enforcement. The new rules prohibited agents from detaining people solely based on their illegal status. Now, deportation is only threatened for those who have committed serious crimes, such as murder, rape, or violent assaults. But the main issue with Biden's policy is the sharp increase in the number of migrants at the border. In response, the administration expanded centers for holding underage migrants and attempted to negotiate with Mexico and Central American countries, allocating billions of dollars for development programs. However, this move has drawn criticism from both Republicans and Democrats. Biden's policy has proven to be contradictory. He promised to make the immigration system humane, but in reality, he was forced to balance between liberal reforms and the need for a tough solution to real problems at the border. Has he managed to find the golden mean? The answer to this question remains open. Key changes in U.S. immigration policy. Now let's talk about the changes in Donald Trump's policy during his second presidential term. In more detail, one of the most notable decisions was Trump's signing of the visual system, an executive order to revoke birthright citizenship. This right, enshrined in the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution since 1868. However, the new administration decided to reconsider this principle, which immediately sparked a storm of legal protests. Just a few days after the order came into effect, a federal judge in the state of Washington blocked it, calling it a blatant violation of the Constitution. More than 20 states, including California, New York, and Illinois, as well as human rights organizations, filed lawsuits against this decision. Now, the fate of the order may be decided in the Supreme Court, which, after recent judicial appointments, shows a clear shift to the right. Another significant change was the declaration of a state of emergency at the border with Mexico. This move allowed the administration to use federal funds without congressional approval, deploy military forces to the border, and expedite the deportation of illegal migrants. The president justified his decision with an article of the Constitution that obliges the government to protect the states from invasion. However, constitutional lawyers harshly criticized this interpretation, stating that the term invasion is traditionally applied to military conflicts, not to migration flows. Incidentally, a similar state of emergency was already declared in 2019, when the Trump administration attempted to bypass Congress to secure funding for the construction of the border wall. At that time, this move sparked fierce debates and was perceived as an attempt to expand the influence of the executive branch, bypassing the system of checks and balances. Significant changes also affected asylum policy. Trump's executive order suspended the acceptance of asylum applications for 90 days. All current procedures are frozen and new applications are temporarily not being considered. This has already led to serious consequences. Thousands of people are stuck on the Mexican side of the border in an uncertain situation. According to human rights activists, since the beginning of 2022, about 100,000 Russians have crossed the border with Mexico hoping to seek asylum in the USA. However, these figures do not account for those who entered on a tourist visa and stayed in the country illegally. All these changes indicate that U.S. immigration policy is moving towards tightening, and immigration issues remain one of the most pressing topics on the country's political agenda. The tightening of immigration policy is not the only problem you might face in the USA. If you drive a car, as you know, you understand extremely well that even the slightest accident can unfortunately become a major headache. Therefore, if you find yourself in such an unpleasant situation in the USA and don't know what to do, I can recommend the legal firm DTP America. There you can find a competent lawyer who will protect your interests. I assure you that with this company you can receive compensation even without insurance. DTP America has helped secure $21 million in compensation for its clients. Here, they will definitely answer all your questions. Link in the description. Reaction to Trump's policy. Trump's immigration policy sparked a strong wave of reaction both domestically and internationally. The UN reminded the USA of their obligations. According to the Geneva Convention, each country is obliged to provide protection to refugees fleeing persecution. Ravina Shamdasani, a representative of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, emphasized that border control should not contradict international human rights standards. Pope Francis also expressed his opinion. A message to American Catholic bishops. He condemned mass deportations, calling them a threat to the dignity of people who left their countries due to poverty and persecution. The pontiff urged believers in the USA not to succumb to discrimination and to show compassion towards migrants. But criticism is not only coming from international organizations and spiritual leaders. Major businessmen and tech giants have also not stayed on the sidelines. For example, Elon Musk, a member of Trump's business council, cautiously stated on social media that the president's order is not the best way to solve the problem. According to him, the new restrictions affect innocent people who do not deserve to be turned away. Amazon's CEO Jeff Bezos did not make a public statement, but the company offered legal assistance to its employees affected by the new laws. However, Uber's CEO Travis Kalanick found himself in a more complicated situation. His participation in Trump's council sparked a wave of criticism among employees and users of the service. In response, Kalanick emphasized that U.S. immigration policy has always been based on the principle of openness, and therefore he will discuss the situation with the president at the next council meeting. It is evident that Trump's anti-immigration measures have divided American society. Some consider them vital to national security, while others see them as a human rights violation. And while the courts are examining the legality of the orders, and politicians and businessmen are expressing their opinions, thousands of people on both sides of the border are waiting for decisions that will change their lives. How does the deportation process work in the USA? Deportation is not just expulsion from the country. It is a complex process that begins long before a person finds themselves on a plane heading back to their home country. The USA rigorously controls its immigration system, and those who have broken the law in the United States are subject to deportation. These can be people who have committed crimes, pose a threat to public safety and security, or have violated the terms of their visa. First, the violator is detained. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, may send them to one of the detention centers. There they will remain until the hearing. Some foreigners have the right to appear before an immigration judge, but there are also those who can be deported without a trial through the expedited removal process. This happens if a person arrived in the USA without the necessary documents, used fake papers, or violated entry conditions. If the court issues a deportation order, ICE proceeds with its execution. In most cases, the person is deported by plane. For this, ICE, an entire aviation division called ICE, Air Operations. It is responsible for transporting detainees both within the country and abroad. There are two main methods of deportation by air. The first is charter flights organized specifically to send foreigners back to their home countries. They are also used to transport detainees between detention centers in the USA. The second method is commercial airlines, which are used for deporting individuals, including without ICE agents' accompaniment. But there are also special deportation flights, known as high-risk charters. They are intended for foreigners who pose a security threat, have evaded deportation orders, or have other aggravating circumstances. In some cases, foreigners have the opportunity to avoid forced deportation and leave the U.S. voluntarily at their own expense. This is called voluntary departure. And for those convicted of non-violent crimes, there is the Rapid Repat program, which allows them to be released from prison early and return to their homeland. Deportation in the U.S. is a well-tuned mechanism operating on a full-scale level. Annually, thousands of people leave the country by court decision or through expedited removal. And although this process may seem inhumane, it is an integral part of American immigration policy. Policy changes regarding Ukrainian refugees. The Trump administration is preparing for radical changes in immigration policy that will affect Ukrainian refugees. It is expected that in April of this year, a decision will be made to revoke the temporary legal status of about 240,000 Ukrainians residing in the United States. This move is part of broader efforts by the administration to revoke the status for more than 1.8 million migrants who were granted humanitarian visas under Joe Biden. However, despite rumors and discussions on social media, the White House administration was quick to refute the information. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that a decision has not yet been made. Nevertheless, concern among Ukrainians is growing. Messages are appearing on social media that deportation prisons have been opened for them in Guantanamo, and some are even considering possible immigration to Mexico. The reaction to such measures was not long in coming. People around the world are expressing outrage. On social media, accusations can be found against Trump, comparing his actions to Nazi Germany. Critics also point out that this decision goes beyond the bounds of humanity. Many users, including Australians and Dutch, are absolutely calling these steps truly insane and disgusting. Meanwhile, the decision to terminate the Uniting for Ukraine program, which allowed Ukrainians to escape the war and find refuge in the USA, also raises many questions. This program, which was launched almost 3 years ago, has helped more than 300,000 Ukrainian refugees. Now, however, no Ukrainian can enter the country under this program, and those who are already in the USA cannot apply for a status extension. Ukrainians in the USA with temporary protected status are also at risk. Currently, they are allowed to stay in the country until April 2025, but under the current Trump administration policy, even this status could be revoked. Ukrainians finding themselves in such a situation now cannot help but wonder what will happen to them next if the policy continues to change in this direction. We hope that the Trump administration will make the most balanced decision. It is clear that soon we will learn a lot of new news about the fight against migrants in the USA. Well, that's all from me for now. I hope you enjoyed my video today and you will give it a like. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. They come out almost A monster that cries like a baby to lure its victims into a trap. A creature with enormous wings and red eyes that stalks people. Ghosts of children demanding sacrifices and dragging fishermen to the bottom. All these are characters from urban legends and myths of the indigenous peoples of America. Today, I will tell you about the creepiest monsters, capable of frightening even adults. Chupacabra. Perhaps one of the most famous creatures is the chupacabra. It terrifies farmers because, according to legend, the monster kills livestock and drinks the blood of animals. It is believed that its victims are most often goats. This belief is actually where the word chupacabra comes from. It originates from the Spanish language and means goat sucker. The monster with sharp teeth and glowing eyes supposedly first appeared in Puerto Rico in the middle of the last century. There, several dead goats were found, their blood having been sucked out. The local residents concluded that the livestock had been killed by a terrifying creature that no one had ever encountered before. Soon, reports of the mythical monster spread to Central America and the southern United States. The chupacabra is described as a four-legged animal resembling a dog or coyote, with fangs and a pig-like snout. However, the monster is also said to have features of a bat, a reptile, and even an insect. In recent years, several mysterious incidents have occurred in Texas linked to alleged sightings of the chupacabra. A few years ago, surveillance cameras at the Amarillo Zoo captured an unidentified object. The footage sparked numerous theories, from an animal wearing an unusual headpiece to a large coyote standing on its hind legs, and of course the mythical chupacabra. Earlier in Houston, a strange creature was also caught on video, which likewise evoked associations with the bloodsucker. Before that, a family from Radcliffe claimed to have captured a creature they believed to be a chupacabra. In the mid-2000s, a farmer caught a hairless, dog-like creature in a trap that had been attacking his livestock. However, DNA analysis revealed that the animal caught in the trap was actually a very old coyote. Geneticists and biologists have repeatedly studied the alleged remains of the chupacabra. For the most part, these turned out to be dogs with allergies that caused them to lose their fur. They were also coyotes suffering from severe sarcoptic mange. Due to the disease, the coyote's skin became gray and scaly and the remaining fur turned bristly. The appearance of such animals gave rise to the legends about the chupacabra. The otter man, far less well known but no less sinister, are the stories about a creature known as the kushtaka, or otter man. In the legends of one of the indigenous peoples, it is a malevolent, bodiless spirit capable of shapeshifting. According to legend, it appeared in Alaska many millennia ago. This is a demon that can take the form of a half-human, half-otter. Eyewitness accounts describe a monster about 8 feet tall with a well-developed musculature. The creature walks on 2 legs, its long arms almost reaching its knees, and its torso and head are slightly bent forward. Its powerful forelimbs are equipped with long, sharp claws. Kushtaka can also appear in the guise of a child or a beautiful woman, luring unsuspecting travelers into deadly places. This mysterious creature attracts the close attention of cryptozoologists. The indigenous people have told scientists many chilling stories. According to the locals, the monster lures people into the forest and can overturn a fisherman's boat. They believe that people who disappeared while hunting or fishing became victims of the monster. Despite numerous attempts, the beast has never been caught. Testimonies from indigenous people, many of whom believe in the existence of the otter man, and some even claim to have personally encountered him, keep interest in this mystery alive. The Mothman? Another mysterious cryptid is the Mothman. Reports about it have come from various parts of the world, including the United States. It is described as a humanoid creature up to 13 feet tall. The monster has large, bright red eyes that, according to eyewitnesses, emit an unusual glow. Its body is covered with thick dark fur or a fluffy black coat. Large wings are the creature's main and most notable feature. Some witnesses compare them to the delicate wings of a butterfly, while others liken them to the wings of a bat. Some sources also mention the presence of hands with long, sharp claws. The creature is first mentioned in an American urban legend from the 1960s. 5 people who were digging a grave in a cemetery located in West Virginia claim to have seen a mysterious flying humanoid figure. 3 days later, 2 young couples from the town of Point Pleasant reported to the police that they had seen a very large creature with glowing, bright red eyes. According to their detailed accounts, it was a flying man with large, impressive wings who chased after their car. Over the course of 2 years, about 100 people reported sightings of the Mothman. Some paranormal researchers suggested that it might be of extraterrestrial origin, connected to the otherworldly, or belong to species unknown to science. However, skeptics offered more rational explanations for the phenomenon. The appearance of the Mothman could have simply been a prank, an unidentified flying object, or a large bird. While traveling across America, you are unlikely to encounter a monster, but more real problems are much more likely. Have you been in a car accident in America and don't know what to do next? Where should you turn for help? Where can you find a competent lawyer? How can you get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company DTP America has helped its clients receive $21 million in compensation. Here, you will definitely get answers to all your questions. The link is in the description. Squonk. Imagine the darkness of the ancient spruce forests of northern Pennsylvania, pierced by moonlight. In the silence, a heart-wrenching cry rings out. That is the squonk. Legends about the squonk most likely emerged at the end of the 19th century when the state's timber industry and logging were rapidly developing. The squonk's bitter tears are an echo of the pain born from the destruction of the trees. There is no complete description of the squonk. According to legend, its skin is in very poor condition, covered with warts, growths, and spots. The squonk constantly weeps bitterly because of its ugliness. The creature is said to be reclusive. It only leaves its burrow under the cover of night, afraid of being seen by travelers. You can tell a squonk is nearby by its wet tracks or the sounds of its crying. It is easiest to spot one in cold weather during a full moon. The squonk becomes less mobile, and its crying is easier to hear. Sometimes the squonk cries so much that it can completely dissolve in its own tears. Sometimes we're all a little bit like the squonk, aren't we? This ability helps the emotional forest dweller get by. People have hunted the weeping monster, but they could never capture it because it would melt away in its tears whenever cornered. Bigfoot. About a century ago, a group of miners working near Mount St. Helens in Washington reported an encounter with enormous humanoid creatures. While in their cabin, they were attacked by ape men and were forced to open fire to drive them away. Skeptics explain this incident as the result of the isolated and ominous environment affecting the miners' minds. However, this report of Bigfoot was not the only one. According to legend, a creature known as the Yeti or Bigfoot roams the forests of Washington, Oregon, and the northern regions of California. It is said to reach a height of 10 feet, with a body covered in thick fur. Its dark fur allows Bigfoot to blend in with its surroundings. Despite numerous accounts from different people, concrete evidence of Bigfoot's existence has never been found. Some scientists believe that these reports are nothing more than mistaken identification of known animals. For example, once some hair that was believed to belong to the forest monster was sent for analysis. However, the results showed that the hair belonged to the deer family. Most photographs, meanwhile, are usually of poor quality or taken in low light. Nevertheless, the theory of Bigfoot's existence has always had plenty of supporters. Lechuza. In Texas folklore, there is a myth about the lechuza, a creature that was born from a deal with the devil. In some legends, lechuzas are women who practiced witchcraft and paid the price for it. Under the cover of night, they would transform into owls with human faces that retained their earthly beauty. Once turned into a bird, the lechuza would go out to hunt. The monster would lie in wait for its prey in secluded places, luring them with an eerie whistle or the cry of a child. Then, like a bolt of lightning, the harpy would suddenly swoop down on its victim. There are also legends that say the lechuza is the spirit of a woman who was murdered and returned from the grave to spread terror and take revenge for her tragic fate. In the modern world, according to the legends, encounters with her most often happen during nighttime journeys on deserted roads. Neither steel nor bullets can harm her. They say she is immortal. The only known means of protection is salt. If you hear her piercing scream, drive her away with curses, threaten her, and scold her. The main thing is, under no circumstances should you try to find the source of the sound, whether it's a whistle or a child's cry in the night. Rugaru. If the lechuza is an owl with a woman's head, then with the rugaru it's different. He appears as a man with the head of a wolf or a dog. There are also versions of hybrids with other animals, pigs, cows, or even chickens. This is a folkloric werewolf from Louisiana. According to legend, those who become rugaru are people who have sold their soul to the devil. This curse lasts for 101 days, after which it passes on to the person whose blood the rugaru has drunk. During the day, the rugaru looks like an ordinary person, although he behaves strangely. The creature inhabits the swamps and forests between Acadiana and New Orleans. The transformation happens instantly, without any visible effort, as if the body turns inside out. Before the transformation, the rugaru looks like an ordinary person. In its beastly form, it possesses incredible strength, but retains its human mind and control over animal instincts, unlike classic werewolves. For a complete transformation, the rugaru needs human blood. The rugaru curse can be hereditary, passed from father to son. The monster can be killed by fire, a bullet, or a knife. There is a belief that spilling its blood returns the person to human form. Although in some versions of the legend, this leads to the death of the person who spilled the werewolf's blood within a year. Water babies. The legends of the Great Basin tribes tell of water babies, creatures that dwell in springs, ponds, and lakes. Their cry, which sounds like that of a child, serves as bait for the victims they wait for in the water. According to some versions, these dangerous beings are the ghosts of infants killed by their mothers during times of famine. In the beliefs of one of the tribes, water babies are powerful spirits inhabiting the bodies of water in their lands, especially around Lake Tahoe on the border of California and Nevada. It was believed that they were capable of both benevolent acts and punitive actions, up to and including death. The southern shore of Lake Tahoe, especially a cave in the cliff, was considered a sacred place linked to the water babies. Only shamans could visit this cave for spiritual purification, communicating with spirits and offering gifts in hopes of gaining their support. Before going out onto the lake or fishing, the locals performed rituals. They offered corn, bread, and pine nuts to the spirits. The food was placed in baskets sealed with resin and lowered into the water. These offerings were meant to protect the fishermen from death and ensure a good catch. The disappearance of people on the lake was explained by the anger of the water children who had destroyed them, the dead bride. Modern urban legends are no less frightening, for example, the story of the dead bride. The image of a sorrowful and mysterious ghost in a wedding dress has become deeply rooted in American folklore, fueling countless stories, legends, and superstitions. She represents a collective image based on common motifs: a tragic death on the eve of or on the wedding day, unquenchable sorrow, and sometimes a thirst for revenge. Stories about dead brides vary depending on the region. In some stories, the woman's ghost simply grieves, wandering through places connected to her life, her home, the church, or the cemetery. She may quietly weep, softly sing wedding songs, or simply watch the living. In other tales, the dead bride more actively tries to interact with the living, warning them of danger or seeking comfort. In the darkest version, she becomes a vengeful spirit, seeking to take revenge on those she believes are responsible for her death. According to one legend, on Susquehanna Road in Pennsylvania, near the railroad bridge over the Susquehanna River, you might encounter the ghost of a young woman. Local residents claim that if you stop by the bridge, turn off the engine, place your keys on the roof of the car and wait a little, you might see a ghost in the rearview mirror, letting out a piercing scream. Most stories say that this is the spirit of a woman who was left at the altar and decided to end her life. Be that as it may, I personally wouldn't stop the car and try to find out the reasons for the dead bride's sorrow. The clown. In the early 90s, while audiences everywhere were laughing at the eccentric clown Homie D, played by Damon Wayans on the comedy show In Living Color, a sense of terror reigned in Chicago. The city was gripped by a wave of panic, sparked by rumors about a mysterious clown whom children feared. He became the subject of numerous reports of child abductions. The overwhelming majority of information came from children, which undoubtedly made the investigation more difficult. The police treated these reports with the utmost seriousness, but the contradictory testimonies significantly complicated the search for the alleged criminal. Descriptions of the vehicle the clown was driving ranged from a black pickup truck to an Oldsmobile or a van with a menacing "ha-ha" sign on the side. In addition to verbal testimonies, parents received anonymous letters warning them about the clown, which furthered the atmosphere of fear and anxiety. Additional security measures were introduced in schools, and parents picked up their children earlier than usual, fearing for their safety. In the end, despite all the efforts of law enforcement, the police classified these reports as an urban legend. The Devil's Chair. In the heart of Alma Cemetery, a quiet provincial necropolis in Kansas, a grim secret is hidden. There lies a boarded up well, shrouded in legends and rumors. The story of its origin dates back to ancient times, when these lands belonged to a surly and reclusive farmer. The man stubbornly refused to sell his plot for the development of the newly established town of Alma. One day the farmer disappeared without a trace. Sometime later, a foul, nauseating stench began to emanate from the abandoned well on his property, saturating the air around it. Instead of investigating the farmer's disappearance and the source of the stench, the city authorities made an unusual decision. The well was boarded up and construction of the cemetery around it continued. The story did not end there. Soon, stories of mysterious disappearances began to spread among the residents of Alma. Brave, or perhaps simply careless, visitors to the cemetery who decided to sit on the well's cover would vanish without a trace. These stories, reinforced by the cemetery's grim atmosphere and the mysterious origins of the well, gave rise to a chilling legend about the Devil's Chair. The mystery of the Devil's Chair still captures the imagination and continues to attract paranormal investigators, adding to Alma Cemetery's sinister reputation. What secrets does the boarded-up well conceal? The answer, it seems, will forever remain buried underground. The ghosts of children in the cemetery. The state of Alabama has its own cemetery legend. In the center of the city's oldest necropolis, there is a playground that has become the epicenter of paranormal activity. Local residents speak of strange occurrences happening at the playground late in the evenings and at night. The swings move on their own, as if an invisible force sets them in motion. Witnesses describe the appearance of glowing orbs floating in the air, as well as hearing mysterious voices and children's laughter. At the heart of these terrifying stories is a legend about a tragedy that occurred in the 1960s. According to legend, several children disappeared without a trace and were found dead on this very playground under circumstances that remain unexplained to this day. There is a theory that the children were kidnapped. After that, the ghosts of the children wandered around the playground, reminding visitors to the cemetery of their presence. One day, the city authorities removed the old playground equipment to make room for new burials. The local residents were unhappy with this decision. Their strong emotional attachment to this place made them protest until the city authorities agreed to build a new playground on the same spot. Wendigo. Deep in the forests of Minnesota lives the Wendigo. This terrifying creature comes from Native American folklore. Many believe that the monster is responsible for numerous mysterious disappearances in the region. The Wendigo can grow to over 14 feet tall. It has long, sharp fangs, and its eyes glow like burning coals in the pitch darkness. Its body can be emaciated, skeletal, with unnaturally long limbs. In some legends, the Wendigo emits an icy breath capable of freezing everything around it. What makes the Wendigo especially terrifying is its origin. According to legend, Wendigos were once human, but turned into monsters after tasting human flesh. The very process of transformation is described in different ways. It can be a gradual change in personality, accompanied by an ever-growing craving for human flesh, or a sudden, abrupt transformation into a monstrous creature. There are accounts from experienced hunters. For example, there is the story of a hunter from the Cree tribe who claimed to have killed more than one Wendigo. He recounted one incident when, according to him, a Wendigo possessed a woman. Conclusion. All these stories are full of mysteries and serve as reminders of the horrors that lurk in the night. However, I hope I didn't scare you too much. After all, these are just legends and myths, based on superstitions and imagination. Now you know a little more about the folklore of the United States. Write in the comments which legend is your favorite. Imagine a place where there are no laws, no police, no taxes, where the only rules are dictated by the desert. Slab City in California exists on the remnants of a military base abandoned by the government in the mid-20th century. Hundreds of people come here every year to escape society, death, and the past. They build homes from available materials, paint graffiti on concrete slabs, and live without bills or schedules. But freedom here comes at a price, and not everyone is willing to pay it. Slab City is called the last anarchist community in America. Here you can meet retirees in vans, artists creating surreal installations, and fugitives hiding from justice. In 2018, a National Geographic photographer spent a month here. He described this place as follows: a paradise for those who hate, rules, and a hell for those seeking security. In the summer, temperatures reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the winter, they drop below zero at night. Water is drawn from contaminated wells, and food is brought once a week from the nearest town 30 miles away. But the main danger is not from nature. In 2020, a man's body with stab wounds was found here. Locals whispered that he had stolen food from the wrong group. The police arrived 3 days later when the body had already begun to decompose. The investigation was closed due to a lack of witnesses. In 2022, a woman disappeared after an argument with a dealer selling drugs at the entrance to the camp. She was not searched for. In Slab City, only those who are ready to kill for a sip of water or a piece of bread survive. Salvation Mountain, an art installation made from old cars and painted slabs, has become a symbol of this place. Tourists take photos in front of it, not noticing the syringes and empty shells scattered underfoot. They leave before sunset, leaving the town to those who call it home. But what awaits these people? Old age in a crumbling van, death from an overdose, or a bullet in the back for a pack of cigarettes? Slab City does not judge. It simply exists as a reminder of what happens when society turns its back on its outcasts. The devil in the nursery. In the United States of America, dozens of cases of cannibalism are recorded annually. Most of the criminals do not resemble the maniacs from horror movies. They are teachers, mathematicians, mothers of 3 children, war veterans. In 2012, in Miami, a homeless man ate a living person's face in front of bystanders. In 2015, a student from New York stabbed a neighbor to, as he later said, try human flesh. Du basta. Have you ever wondered indeed what could turn a mother into a monster? In 2009, in the quiet Texas town of San Antonio, something happened that made even experienced criminologists shudder. Oti Sanchez, a woman with the face of a neighbor who bakes pies for church holidays, took a kitchen knife and cut up the body of her 3-week-old son. She bit off the baby's fingers, swallowed part of his brain, and then tried to slit her own throat with a sharp blade. When the police broke into the house, they found her in a pool of blood, muttering the same words. He made me do it. The court found her insane, but the question remained. What was it? A mental breakdown? The voice of God? Or true possession? Imagine that tomorrow morning you turn on the TV and see the face of a woman who was smiling yesterday, handing out candy to children on the street. Today she is accused of cannibalism. In a house that smelled of vanilla and fresh baking, they found swords, meat cleavers, and blood-stained sheets. Oti told investigators that the devil whispered to her, "Kill to save." But from what? From the poverty that was suffocating her family? From the loneliness that gnawed at her at night? Or from something that science cannot explain and religion fears to name? The story of Oti Sanchez is just the tip of the iceberg. Psychiatrists debate the Wendigo syndrome, an ancient myth turned diagnosis. But how do you distinguish a legend from a real threat that might be lurking behind the door of any home? Oti Sanchez is currently in a psychiatric clinic. Her story is not a horror movie script. It's a question that hangs in the air, like the smell of smoke after a fire. What do we know about those who make us coffee in the morning, fix cars in the garage, wave at school meetings? In Texas, people still believe that the devil walks the earth in the guise of ordinary people. Could he already be here among us, pretending to be someone we would never suspect? Redneck. Laughter through tears. What do you really know about rednecks? If you believe Hollywood movies, they are rough men in cowboy hats who drink beer, swear, and roll around in the mud. But why do thousands of people every July throw toilet seats, jump into mud pits, and catch pig legs with their teeth? The Day of American Rednecks is not just a strange holiday. It is the cry of those whom the country has preferred to forget. In the towns of Appalachia and the abandoned corners of Texas, the poverty rate exceeds 20%. There are no factories providing jobs, schools educating children, or hospitals saving lives here. There are only landfills where rednecks work for $9 an hour, sorting through piles of garbage. Their traditions have long become a way to survive in a world that has turned its back on them. Throwing toilet seats is a metaphor. We were flushed away like waste, they say. Catching pig feet with their teeth is a hint. We cling to life like the last piece of meat that someone is trying to take from us. Sociologists call these rituals an act of resistance, without hope for victory. In 2018, a survey was conducted in the state of Kentucky. 67% of rednecks stated that they feel abandoned by the government, like an old sofa on the roadside. Their children move to big cities, their homes rot from dampness, their pride slowly turns into rage. But instead of rebelling, they laugh. The laughter of a redneck is a weapon. When you've been called a hillbilly, a reject, or a subhuman for years, you have two options: explode or put on a clown nose and dance on the edge of the abyss. But what if real madness is hiding behind that clown nose? In 2020 in West Virginia, a group of rednecks set fire to a police station. They shouted, "We've had enough! Enough!" The authorities attributed it all to mental illness, but the locals know the truth. It was the cry of those who have nothing to lose except the dirt under their nails and toilet seats in their hands. Redneck Day is a mirror in which America sees its reflection. On one hand, there are funny competitions and crude humor. On the other, there are people who have been waiting for decades for the country to finally remember that they exist. What will happen if that never occurs? The answer already echoes in the crash of falling toilet seats and the hoarse laughter that drowns in the silence of abandoned minds. Water or death? Imagine waking up every morning with one thought: where to find water so you don't die today. For the Santee Sioux tribe, in Nebraska, this is not a metaphor. For 40 years, they have been drinking from puddles contaminated with bacteria and rusty barrels left after military exercises. The Missouri River, full of clean water, flows 300 yards from their homes. But between them and the river is a wall of bureaucracy, indifference, and empty promises. In New York, a person uses as much water in a day as a Santee Sioux family uses in a week. While Metropolis's water lawns and filled pools, children in the reservation drink liquid that causes stomach cramps. Mothers boil it over fires, knowing that it won't kill all the poisons. They silently watch as their little ones lose hair, develop rashes, and grow weaker. In East 2023, a 3-year-old girl from the Santee Sioux died of dehydration. Her last words were, "Mom, give me water." Officials have remained silent for years. When asked why there is no water supply in the reservation, the governor of Nebraska replied that it is a federal issue. Federal authorities talk about priority projects, but the money goes to roads in wealthy districts. The Santee Sioux are not alone. In Arizona, the Navajo tribe has been fighting for decades for access to wells. In South Dakota, children from the Pine Ridge Reservation drink water with arsenic. These are not coincidences. This is a system that erases some to fertilize others. What is scarier, the nuclear threat or the silent genocide that no one notices? The Santi-Sioux have become a symbol. But how many such symbols are needed for the country to wake up? While politicians argue, a child in Nebraska takes a sip of water that could be his last breath. But if you get into a car accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to seek help? Where to find a competent lawyer? How to get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company Car Accident America has helped obtain $21 million in compensation for its clients. Here you will definitely get answers to all your questions. Link in the description. Ghost Town, Dudley Town. Towns die for various reasons. Some are consumed by progress, others are erased by wars. The name Dudleytown in Connecticut died because of a curse that many believe still lives among the ruins. Founded by the descendants of an English nobleman who was dethroned, the town became a place where tragedies occurred in succession. Residents perished in fires, hanged themselves from trees, and vanished into the forest without a trace. By the 1950s, the last families fled, leaving their homes to rot in the rain. Legends say that the land of Dudleytown is cursed. Those who dare to stay here overnight speak of voices whispering curses and figures stalking them in the dark. In 1999, a group of Yale students came to shoot a documentary film. They captured strange lights in the forest, and by morning, they found all the cameras broken and the tapes ruined. Skeptics claim that the curse is a fabrication. They point to natural causes for the town's demise, such as poor roads and lack of resources. But how can we explain that dozens of curious people have died here over the past 70 years? In 2012, a tourist from New York fell off a cliff, screaming that shadows with claws were chasing him. In 2019, a woman committed suicide, leaving a note saying, "They won't let me go." Today, Dudleytown is guarded by a private organization that prohibits entry. But this doesn't stop thrill seekers. They sneak through fences, risking their lives to prove that the curse is real. Maybe it's not a ghost town, but a mirror reflecting our fears. Fear of the unknown, of what we cannot control, of the truth that may be scarier than any legends. Drugs instead of dollars. What happens when a town is deprived of its future? It begins to devour itself. In the counties of Ohio and Kentucky, drugs have long replaced money. Methamphetamine is traded here for food, gasoline, even children's toys. Homes have been turned into laboratories, schools into dens, and streets into markets where life is worth less than a dose. The unemployment rate here exceeds 30%. Factories have closed, farms have gone bankrupt, and the youth are fleeing to the cities. Those who remain survive as best they can. One man whose name you won't find. In the newspapers, he told how he became a dealer. "I needed to feed my daughter. The choice was simple. Sell drugs or watch her die. The police know about it. They drive by because arresting everyone is impossible. And why bother? In a day, new dealers will take the place of the old ones. The roots of this catastrophe run deeper than they seem. In the 90s, pharmaceutical companies flooded rural areas with opioids, assuring doctors that the pills were not addictive. By 2010, a generation had formed that knew no life without pain and drugs. When the authorities finally restricted the sale of pills, people turned to heroin and then to methamphetamine. Dealers became the only ones bringing any money into the towns. In 2022, a woman named Lisa died in Ohio. She sold her last dose to buy her daughter sneakers for school. Her body was found in an abandoned barn. Neighbors said that Lisa was kind but tired of fighting. Her story is not an exception. It's the rule. Now these places resemble a no-go zone. People walk like shadows, and the air is filled with a chemical stench. But this is not a post-apocalyptic movie. This is the America that they prefer not to show on the news. Manly Hot Springs, River of Death. Manly Hot Springs in Alaska, a settlement with a population of 80 people, seemed like a place where time had stopped until October 26, 1984. On that day, Michael Silka, a local hunter, shot 6 people at the boat dock. On that day, Michael Silka, a local hunter, shot 6 people at the boat dock. His victims were random passers-by, tourists, a neighbor. Then he stole a boat, hid the bodies in the Tanana River, and attempted to escape into the taiga. The police tracked him down by helicopter. Silka opened fire, injuring the pilot. In the shootout, an officer was killed before the murderer was taken down by a sniper's bullet. The investigation found no motive. Silka had no conflicts with the victims and did not suffer from mental disorders. The only clue was his diary, where a week before the murders he wrote, "It's too quiet here. I need a loud end." After the tragedy, Manly Hot Springs became a ghost town. Half of the many residents departed, and the rest locked their doors. Tourists, who once came for the hot springs now avoid this place. In 2005, a journalist from Anchorage tried to interview the survivors. The village elder told her, "We don't talk about it. The shadow of the tragedy is still here." The story of Manly Hot Springs is not unique. In 2019 in Wyoming, a hunter killed 4 people at an abandoned ranch and then took his own life. His note contained one word: boredom. These cases make one wonder what happens when isolation and silence become unbearable. Modern rural residents increasingly choose the internet over neighbors, but loneliness only accumulates like steam in a boiler. And one day it explodes, erasing the line between a quiet evening and a bloody nightmare. The Christmas Massacre. Christmas is supposed to be a time of joy, but for the Lawson family in 1929 it became the last day of their lives. Charlie Lawson, the father of 7 children, bought everyone new outfits and invited a photographer to take a family portrait. In the photo, they smile as if there is no tomorrow. The next day, Charlie took a gun and shot his wife, all the children, and then himself. No suicide note, no hint of a motive. Only blood on the Christmas table and the silence that still hangs over their home in North Carolina. The police searched for answers but found only new questions. Charlie had no debts, no feuds with neighbors, and showed no aggression. A week before the murder, he behaved like a loving father, fixing the fence and joking with the children. Psychiatrists suggested latent schizophrenia, but the locals whispered about a curse. They recalled how a year before the tragedy, Charlie wandered through the forest, claiming he heard voices. Some said he sold his soul to the devil, others blamed poisonous mushrooms. The Lawson house still stands. It hasn't been demolished, burned down, or turned into a museum. Locals avoid it, claiming that at night shadows flicker in the windows and footsteps can be heard from under the floor. In 2005, a group of enthusiasts attempted to spend the night there. They fled before dawn, swearing they saw silhouettes of children in Christmas dresses. The story of the Lawson family remains one of America's darkest mysteries. It makes one ponder how fragile the human mind is. What drives a person from absolute normalcy into the abyss of madness in just a few hours? Perhaps each of us is on the edge of this abyss, and the Christmas lights merely disguise the darkness waiting for its moment. The Gainesville Murderers, a theater of horror. He didn't just kill, he staged performances where the victims were actors and death was the climax. Danny Rowling, known as the Gainesville Ripper, in August 1990, took the lives of 5 students in 5 days. He was in no hurry. He savored it. He arranged each body in a pose meant to shock even seasoned forensic experts. He decapitated one victim, placing the head on a shelf opposite the torso. He tied another with ropes in a prayerful pose, as if she were pleading for mercy from the heavens. The city of Gainesville, home to the University of Florida, turned into a trap. Students locked themselves in dormitories, parents demanded evacuations, and the police were at a loss. Rowling chose his victims randomly. He sneaked into homes through open windows, killed with a knife, and disappeared before dawn. His face was not caught on cameras, and his fingerprints did not match any in the database. Authorities offered a reward of $200,000, but this only heightened the panic. The breakthrough came from the father of one of the victims. He noticed that the poses of the murdered victims mirrored scenes from poems that Rowling had written in prison. In 1987, he served time for attacking his own father, and after his release, he vowed to surpass all serial killers in history. He was arrested a month after the last murder. In court, he smiled, read his own poems, said he wanted to leave a mark on eternity. Today, Gainesville is trying to forget that August, but the scars remain. In the dormitories where the murders took place, there are still no people willing to live. Teachers whisper that footsteps are sometimes heard in the corridors, even though the buildings are empty. Rowling was executed in 2006, but his legacy lives on. It serves as a reminder that evil does not always come from outside. Sometimes it accumulates for years in those we consider normal, until one day it bursts out, like pus from an old wound. Mass murder in Piketon. The silence of the small town of Piketon, Ohio was shattered by gunfire on the night of April 22, 2016. 8 members of the Roden family were killed in 4 different homes located within a 2-mile radius. The perpetrators disabled surveillance cameras, wore masks, and acted with military precision. The victims included a grandmother, parents, 3 children, and 2 teenagers. The youngest was 10 years old. The killers took nothing but lives. The investigation revealed that the massacre was the culmination of a years-long dispute between the Roden and Wagner families over child custody. Christopher Wagner Jr., the father of the girl being raised by the Rodens, planned revenge with his brothers and mother. They practiced shooting, studied the victims' schedules, and even conducted attack rehearsals. On the day of the murders, they split into groups to synchronize the attacks. The police discovered Christopher's diary, where he wrote that he would cleanse the earth of filth. Piketon, where everyone knew each other by face, couldn't believe that neighbors had been planning a mass murder for years. The local priest who conducted the funerals said that this was a war without rules in the heart of America. The court sentenced the Wagners to life imprisonment, but questions remain. How did a family dispute turn into a massacre? Why did no one notice that an arsenal of weapons was stored in the neighbor's garage? Now the Roden homes have been demolished, leaving a vacant lot overgrown with weeds. The residents of Piketon avoid this place, especially at night. They say that sometimes the cries of children can be heard there, although no one dares to check. The story of Piketon became a lesson that no one learned. In 2023, a similar scenario repeated in Iowa. A man killed 6 relatives over an inheritance dispute. It seems America has forgotten that family can be not only a support, but also a ticking time bomb. Kanye West, a name that evokes a storm of emotions. But who is he really? A genius or a madman? This question troubles many. His journey began in Chicago, where he was raised under the wing of his mother, an English teacher. From a young age, Kanye showed an interest in music, dreaming of changing the world of hip-hop. And he succeeded. In 2004, he released his debut album, The College Dropout, which revolutionized the perception of rap by adding melody and deep lyrics. But success in music was just the beginning. Kanye aspired for more. He burst into the fashion world, creating the Yeezy brand, which became a symbol of style and luxury. His collaboration with Adidas brought iconic sneaker models to mass culture, which millions sought after. However, fame and recognition also had a downside. Kanye's extravagant actions and loud statements often became topics of discussion. These became especially evident in the last few years. His statements about his own greatness and comparing himself to God caused bewilderment and criticism. In 2020, he announced his intention to run for President of the United States, which many perceived as another publicity stunt. West's personal life is also full of drama. His marriage to Kim Kardashian, their 4 children, and subsequent divorce became hot topics for tabloids. Public spats, emotional performances, and revelations about mental health. Kanye only fueled the interest in his persona. So who is he? A genius musician, an innovator, or a person who has lost touch with reality? The answer to this question remains open. But one thing can be said for sure. Kanye West is a figure that leaves no one indifferent. A guy from Chicago. How did it all begin? Kanye West was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1977. His father, Ray West, was one of the first African-American photojournalists at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and was a member of the Black Panther Party. His mother, Donda West, taught English at Clark Atlanta University and held the academic title of professor. When Kanye was 3 years old, his parents divorced and he moved to Chicago with his mother. In Chicago, Donda headed the philology department at a local university. Kanye grew up in an intellectual environment, surrounded by books and culture. From an early age, he showed an interest in art and music. At the age of 5, he began writing poetry, and by 3rd grade, he was already composing his own songs. In his teenage years, West became interested in hip-hop and started creating his own beats. He collaborated with local artists, gradually earning a reputation as a talented producer. At 19, Kanye dropped out of college to fully dedicate himself to music. His persistence and talent caught the attention of major artists. In the late 90s, he began working with Jay-Z, which became a turning point in his career. Kanye produced several tracks for the album The Blueprint, which is considered a hip-hop classic. However, West did not want to remain solely a producer. He aspired to a solo career. In Seoul, 2004, he released his debut album, The College Dropout, which received critical acclaim and commercial success. This album marked the beginning of his journey as an independent artist and cemented his status as an innovator in the music world. The first scandals. Kanye West's name quickly became surrounded by an aura of scandal. One of the rapper's earliest and most memorable antics occurred at the MTV Video Music Awards in 2009. At that time, young Taylor Swift received the award for Best Female Video. She was standing on stage holding the statuette when suddenly Kanye walked up on stage, grabbed the microphone and declared that he thought Beyoncé deserved the award. More. This act shocked the audience and marked the beginning of a long-standing conflict with Taylor. But that was just the first warning. In 2013, in an interview with the New York Times, Kanye stated that he did not regret his actions at the VMA. He emphasized that he would always express his opinion, regardless of the consequences. His eccentric behavior continued to attract attention. In 2020, during his presidential campaign, Kanye declared that God had called him to run for President of the United States. He also claimed that Harriet Tubman, the well-known abolitionist, did not actually free the slaves but just made them work for other white people. These statements sparked a wave of criticism and doubts about his mental health. I am a visionary. Fashion, money, ambition. Kanye has also achieved considerable success in design. It all started in 2005 when he made his first attempt to create his own clothes. These sneakers, released in an updated version, combined a recognizable design with the addition of reflective elements, which successfully attracted the attention of both fans and collectors. Another notable model was the Yeezy Foam Runner Mineral Blue. Their futuristic design and use of innovative materials made them popular among enthusiasts of unconventional footwear. However, the design activities were not without problems. In 2022, the company Adidas terminated its contract with West due to his anti-Semitic remarks. This decision led to legal disputes, which concluded in 2024 with a settlement agreement. In the same 2024, Kanye invited Russian designer Gosha Rubchinsky to the position of creative director at YZ. The collaboration led to the creation of unique collections that combined Western and Eastern European aesthetic elements. However, in February 2025, Rubchinsky announced the termination of his collaboration with the brand amid West's controversial statements. Kanye continued to provoke the public into debates and heated discussion. It seems that he is always ready to shock, regardless of the scale of his actions. But as in each of our lives, there are moments when we need to seek help, when the situation gets out of control. And in such situations, it's important to know where to go, whom to turn to protect your rights. If, for example, you get into an accident in America and don't know what to do next, the accident company, America, will help you find the right solution. They can assist you in obtaining compensation even if you don't have insurance. The accident company America has already helped its clients receive over $21 million in compensation. If you need professional advice and assistance, don't wait. Click the link in the description. The first painful falls. Kanye West and Kim Kardashian are a couple whose names were synonymous with glamour and success. However, their marriage, which began in 2014, ended in divorce in 2021. The reasons for their separation were multifaceted. Kim noted that she is striving for her own happiness and wants to live in harmony with herself. On the other hand, Kanye pointed to the negative influence of pornography and social media on their relationship, calling Hollywood a giant brothel. Mental health. Kanye's mental health also played a significant role in the breakup with Kim. In 2016, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which led to his emotional instability and impulsive actions. This created tension in the family, and Kim and Kanye's scandals increasingly became public knowledge. Meanwhile, Kim often publicly supported her husband, calling for understanding and compassion. She noted that Kanye's condition is part of his genius. Unstable condition. Kanye's condition raised concerns among specialists, who noted that without proper help, he could become dangerous to those around him. Kanye's religious rebirth. During a period of personal and professional trials, Kanye turned to religion as a source of renewal. In October 2019, he released the album Jesus is King, which became a reflection of his spiritual journey. This work differed from the artist's previous releases. It was dominated by gospel motifs and lyrics dedicated to Christian themes. Critics and listeners received the album ambiguously, noting its religious focus and departure from Kanye's usual style. In parallel with the album release, Kanye initiated a project called Sunday Service. This gospel choir performed church hymns and reworked versions of West songs. All of this was performed like a church service. The project started in early 2019 and quickly attracted attention due to its uniqueness and profound spiritual atmosphere. Interestingly, Kanye invested significant funds into the development of Sunday Service, spending around $50 million to support the choir and organize events. However, questions arose about whether this transformation of Kanye was genuine or just another way to attract attention. Some critics believe that the religious turn in West's work was an attempt to create hype and establish a new image. Others saw it as a sincere pursuit of spiritual renewal and a search for meaning. What do you think about this period in his life, Kanye? Kanye's radicalization. In October 2022, Kanye found himself at the center of a major scandal. His anti-Semitic remarks on social media sparked a wave of outrage. In response, Adidas announced the immediate termination of its partnership with the artist, ceasing the production of products under the Yeezy brand. According to the company's estimates, this move resulted in a loss of approximately $250 million in profits that year. Additionally, the termination of the contract with Adidas significantly reduced West's wealth, stripping him of his billionaire status. However, Adidas was not the only company to end its partnership with Kanye. Many brands and partners distanced themselves from him, condemning his statement. The scandal also affected his political connections. West is known for his friendship with US President Donald Trump. In December 2016, they met at Trump Tower in New York, where they discussed various issues. Kanye even expressed his intention to run for US president, which caused a wide public reaction. However, after West's scandalous statements, their relationship was put to the test. In November 2022, Trump hosted West and well-known Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes at his estate, which sparked a storm of criticism in the media. These events cast doubt on the sincerity of Kanye's political ambitions and his relationships with former allies. Ultimately, West's radical statements and actions led to serious consequences in his career and personal life. He lost multi-million-dollar contracts, support from business partners, and the public. This period became one of the most controversial in the artist's biography, prompting many to ponder the line between freedom of speech and responsibility for one's words and actions. A new wife, new problems. In January 2023, the world was stunned by unexpected news. Kanye West married Bianca Censori, a designer from his company Yeezy. Their union, like a flash of lightning, drew intense attention. The reason was not only the suddenness of the wedding, but also their flamboyant behavior, which immediately became the subject of heated discussions. Bianca, possessing a bold and provocative style, has shocked the public more than once with her revealing outfits. But at the Grammy ceremony in 2025, she outdid herself by appearing in a completely transparent dress. The reaction was instantaneous. Outrage, tabloid headlines, and then their swift removal from the event by security. But behind the glamour and provocations lay much more complex relationships. According to insiders, Bianca did not always support the radical views Kanye had on her appearance, but she was forced to comply with his demands. The further it went, the more he dictated to her how to dress, how to behave, what role to play in their public life. Bianca herself seemed to feel increasingly constrained within these confines. Meanwhile, Kanye continued to destroy the remnants of his reputation. His statements, openly anti-Semitic and politically provocative, became increasingly shocking. He released clothing with Nazi symbols, rejected any criticism, and alienated even his most devoted fans. In February 2025, alarming rumors appeared in the media. Bianca was tired of the endless scandals and decided to break off the relationship. However, the couple's representatives denied this information, saying they were preparing to celebrate Valentine's Day together. New details emerged. The media claimed that the couple had been living separately for a long time, and Kanye was seriously considering moving to Tokyo. All of this only heightened the suspicion that the marriage was falling apart before everyone's eyes. And if this is the end, will it be a quiet one? Or will Kanye turn the breakup into another loud spectacle? Nazism and anti-Semitism in Kanye's work. In March 2025, the rapper is once again at the center of a scandal. Although it seems like this is now a usual state for Kanye, his statements are becoming increasingly shocking. He openly supports Nazis, denies the Holocaust, and claims that he was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. Now he asserts that he suffers from autism, but even that does not excuse him. New antics. In March 2025, Kanye releases several songs. In one of them, his daughter's voice is featured. Another features rapper P. Diddy, who is currently in prison on charges of human trafficking and rape. But the most shocking is the lyrics. In a verse, Kanye compares himself to Hitler, claiming that he is just like the Führer. In the verse, he rhymes the word Hitler with racist slurs. The cover of the new album is a red swastika on a black background. It seemed like this was the limit. But soon Kanye posts a link to a speech by Adolf Hitler. Just provocation is not enough for him. He wants people to hear Nazi propaganda. Social media reacts instantly. Posts are deleted and accounts are blocked. But West doesn't care. He thanks Elon Musk for buying Twitter because he was blocked on other social networks. The reaction to his antics is swift. Kim Kardashian immediately tried to legally prevent the release of a song featuring their daughter's voice. But Kanye posts their correspondence online. He writes that he is starting a war. How will this story end? It's still unknown. But one thing is certain, Kanye West is no longer just a provocative star. He has crossed a line into something truly frightening. This Kanye, whom no one can understand. Our protagonist today is a figure that raises more questions than answers. His actions, like a shockwave, spread across the world, provoking discussions, shocking the public, and dividing it into two camps. For some, he is a genius, a person who has broken established boundaries and dictates the rules of pop culture. For others, he is a destroyer who has crossed the line of what is permissible and plays with themes that carry too heavy a historical burden. His antics are becoming increasingly audacious. Appearing in a shirt with a swastika, showcasing a bag with portraits of Barack and Michelle Obama, and making statements that cannot be justified. It seems there are no lines he is not willing to cross. But why? Is this a conscious challenge to the system or another act of self-destruction? Anti-Semitic statements, blatant glorification of Nazi symbolism, hints that historical facts hold no significance for him. All of this is not just for shock value. It is something more, provoking not only condemnation but also fear. His personal life remains no less tumultuous. There are rumors about a divorce from Bianca Censori after 2 years of marriage, a breakup or part of his game. Kim Kardashian. Their relationship has long surpassed the bounds of personal drama and has turned into an ongoing battle unfolding before the eyes of the entire world. Legal proceedings, disputes over children, leaks of personal correspondence. Kanye seems unable to exist outside of chaos, and yet he does not disappear from the industry. A new album, more provocations, ambiguous statements. Every action he takes is accompanied by a new batch of controversies. Every new day with his name in the headlines is another challenge to society. Where is the limit? Is there anything at all that can stop him? Kanye West remains one of the most unpredictable figures of our time. He doesn't care what people think of him. He lives by his own rules. But how far is he willing to go? And most importantly, what will happen next? There is no answer to this question. For now. أربعة طفلا 3 زيجات أسماء لا يمكن نطقها. هل سمعتم عن الأشخاص الذين يجمعون السيارات؟ إيلون ماسك يجمع الأطفال. 14 وريثا 3 زيجات 5 نساء. أسماء تبدو كأنها شفرات من رواية نهاية العالم. هل تعتقدون أن هذا صدفة؟ لا، إنها نظام. نبدأ بالأرقام. 14 هو الرقم السحري في عالمه، نفس عدد الأقمار لكوكب المشتري ونفس عدد المستعمرات التي يخطط لإنشائها على المريخ. لكن لماذا كل هؤلاء الأطفال؟ الإجابة تكمن في التفاصيل. الابن الأول نيفادا ألكسندر توفي بعد 10 أسابيع، مأساة لبداية ماسك. أطلق برنامج التلقيح الصناعي وكأنه يستبدل جزءا مكسورا في صاروخ. التوأم في عام 2004. الثلاثي في عام 2006. أطفال بدلاء ولدوا في المختبر. هل أنت متأكد أن هذه المحاولة ستتغلب على الحزن؟ أم أنها الخطوة الأولى لإنشاء نسخ احتياطية من نفسه؟ والآن الأسماء: كزافير، جريفين، كاي. يبدو وكأنه قائمة شخصيات من ديستوبيا السايبر بانك، لكن هذا مجرد البداية. إكس آش A12، الطفل اللي حتى الروبوتات لا تقدر تفك شفرة اسمه. إكسو دارك سايدر ال، الابنة اللي يترجم اسمها إلى ظل النجمة المظلمة. تكنو ميكانيكوس، الابن اللي سمي على اسم مصطلح هندسي. دي مشت أسماء، إنها رسالة. لمن؟ ربما لنا، ربما لأولئك الذين سيأتون بعدنا. 3 زيجات، كل واحدة منها كمرحلة من تجربة. جاستين ويلسون، أول تجربة كانت تالولا رايلي، الممثلة اللي تزوجها مرتين وكأنه يختبر ولاءها. جرايمز، المغنية التي أنجبت له أطفالا بأسماء تشبه كلمات المرور. والآن شيفون زيلس، المديرة التنفيذية في نيورالينك. هي ليست مجرد أم لأطفاله، بل هي موظفة، جزء من الآلية. فكروا في الأمر، جميع نسائه عباقرة في مجالاتهن، كاتبات، ممثلات، مهندسات. هل هو صدفة أم اختيار دقيق للمتبرعين لتحسين الشيفرة الجينية؟ ماسك لا يخفي أنه يؤمن بقوة الحمض النووي. يجب أن يكون أطفاله أذكى وأقوى وأكثر تحملا. إنهم مشروع. الأسماء ليست سوى علامات على الأنابيب. هل تعتقدون أن هذه مجرد عائلة كبيرة؟ والآن ننتقل إلى حفل الزفاف. فستان أبيض، خواتم، وعود. ثم يأخذ العريس العروس بيدها ويقول: هنا أنا الألفا. هذه مش مشهدا من فيلم رعب، إنها الواقع. إيلون ماسك وجاستن ويلسون. عام 2000 بداية عصر. جاستن كاتبة ذكية وطموحة، لكنها بالنسبة لماسك أصبحت حاضنة. طفلهما الأول نيفادا ألكسندر توفي بعد 10 أسابيع، متلازمة الموت المفاجئ للرضع. بالنسبة لمعظم الناس هذه مأساة. بالنسبة لماسك إشارة للعمل. هو لا يبكي، هو يحسب الخطأ ويبدأ في التلقيح الصناعي. توأمان في 2004، 3 توائم في 2006، 6 أطفال في 4 سنوات. يمكنك سماع كيف تتصدع نفسية جاستين. هي تعترف لاحقا: لقد حولني إلى مصنع لإنتاج الورثة. لكن الأمر الأكثر رعبا ليس العدد بل الأساليب. الأطفال ينامون وفق جدول، يأكلون وفق جدول، عقولهم صفحة بيضاء لأفكاره. لماذا؟ ما يوجد جواب، فقط شائعات، تحاليل مخبرية، اختبارات جينية، محاولات لتحسين الحمض النووي. وماذا عن ماسك؟ يحتفل بعيد الهالوين مع زوجته السابقة في 2028، يبتسم، يمزح كما لو أن شيئا لم يحدث. فكروا في الأمر، زواجه الأول استمر 8 سنوات. تماما المدة اللازمة لتربية جيل من الأطفال لمستعمرة المريخ. حصلت جاستن على 20 مليون ومنزل. سعر الرخيص مقابل الصمت. هل ما زلتم تصدقون أنه يريد فقط عائلة كبيرة؟ أم أن هذا هو الفصل الأول في مسرحية بعنوان الرجل المستقبل؟ تخيلوا مختبرا، حاضنات زجاجية، شاشات تومض بمؤشرات الحمض النووي. إيلون ماسك لا يفقد طفله في عام 2002 فحسب، بل يفقد السيطرة. نيفادا ألكسندر يموت بعد 10 أسابيع ويصبح ذاك نقطة اللاعودة. لكن الحزن لا. بالنسبة لماسك الموت هو مسألة هندسية. هو لا يبكي عند المهد، بل يدرس تقارير الطب الشرعي كما لو كانت مخططات لإطلاق فاشل لصاروخ، فالكون واعد. بعد عامين يولد التوأمان كزافير وغريفين، ليسوا أطفالا بدلع، مولودون عبر التلقيح الصناعي كأنهم قطع غيار في آلية. هل تعتقد أن هذه محاولة لتعويض الفقدان؟ أم أنها المرحلة الأولى من الاستنساخ الجيني؟ هذا لا يكفي لماسك. 2006 يولد الثلاثة: كاي، ساكسون، ديميان. 6 أطفال في 4 سنوات، 6 نماذج، 6 محاولات لإنشاء الكود المثالي. ما بتقدم صدفة، ما توجد ولادات طبيعية، فقط السيطرة، فقط الحسابات. هل تلاحظ نمطه؟ بعد وفاة الابن الانتقال الفوري إلى التلقيح الصناعي، كما لو أنه أزال الحلقة الضعيفة في بيولوجيا الإنسان. الابن الأكبر كزافير مفجر النظام. في سن 16 يغير اسمه إلى فيفيان جينا ويلسون، يتخلى عن والده والمليارات ويختفي من وسائل الإعلام. لماذا؟ الخبراء يهمسون عن تجارب جينية، عن محاولات زرع رقائق نيورالينك للأطفال، عن تعديل العواطف عبر الواجهات العصبية، لكن لا توجد أدلة. فقط الصمت كثيف مثل الضباب فوق لوس أنجلوس. ماسك يرد بهدوء جليدي. في عام 2024 ينشر صورة مع فيفيان. التعليق: ابني الأكبر. من اعتذارات ولا تفسيرات، كما لو أن التمرد مرحلة مخططة، كما لو أن هروب فيفيان اختبار للبقاء. هل ما زلتم تعتقدون أنها عائلة أم مختبر حيث يتم تدمير بعض العينات وإرسال أخرى للتطوير؟ وماذا عن الثلاثة التوائم كاي، ساكسون، داميان؟ وجوههم نظيفة جوازات بيولوجية، لا اهتمامات، لا أصدقاء، ولا آثار على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي. يظهرون في الأماكن العامة كإحصائيين، بدلات متطابقة، حركات متزامنة، كما لو كانوا نسخا، كما لو أن ماسك قد رباهم على نموذج واحد. هل تعتقد أن هذا جنون الارتياب؟ تذكروا كلماته: أطفالي بيحلون أزمة الطاقة، لن يساعدوا، لن يساهموا، وحيحلون كما يحل المهندسون المعادلات. وهنا السؤال الرئيسي: إذا كان هؤلاء الأطفال جزءا من مشروع، فأين الحد الفاصل بين العائلة والمصنع؟ بين الأب ومدير المختبر؟ أما يعانقهم ماسك ليتحقق من النبض، أم يفحص الحمض النووي بحثا عن أي انحرافات؟ زواج منكم طلاق، شباب، زواج نمط طلاق. 4 سنوات من حياة تالولا رايلي في دوامة ماسك، قصة حب غير سعيدة، إنه اختبار ضغط للنفس البشرية. عام 2010 الممثلة البريطانية النجمة الصاعدة في هوليوود تصبح السيدة ماسك. بعد عامين الطلاق. عام 2013 نعم مرة أخرى. عام 2016 الانفصال النهائي يوم، لكن لا يوجد أطفال ولا واحد. لماذا؟ الجواب يكمن في التفاصيل. تالولا ليست جاستن، هي ليست مستعدة لتكون حاضنة. هي أمريكا، امرأة بصوتها الخاص، وماسك يحتاج إلى جنود وليس شركاء. كان زواجهما الأول محاولة للجمع بين السيطرة والشغف، يهديها عقدا من الألماس لكنه يمنعها من التمثيل في الأفلام ذات المشاهد المثيرة. تلعب دور الزوجة المثالية لكنها تزور سرا معالجا نفسيا. في عام 2012 تمردها لكن ماسك لا يستسلم. في عام 2013 يعود بخاتم وعرض: لنحاول مرة أخرى ولكن بشروطي توافق تالولا. لماذا؟ تشير الشائعات إلى عقود مع الهند عن الضمانات المالية وعن الضغوط. زواجهما الثاني عرض مسرحي، ينشر صورتها على تويتر مع عبارة: زوجتي. عبقري، تبتسم على السجاد الأحمر لكنها في المقابلات تصف علاقتهما بأنها معقدة مثل معادلة تسلا 16. تالولا تقدم طلب الطلاق، هذه المرة إلى الأبد. ماسك لا يعارض، لقد وجد بديلا: شيفون. زيلس بتموي مديرة تنفيذية في نيورالينك، امرأة ستنجب له 4 أطفال دون زواج، دون وعود علنية، دون حق في التمرد. فكر في الأمر: زواجين من امرأة واحدة، 0 أطفال، ثم 4 مع موظفة. هذا ليس رومانسية، إنها تطور في الاستراتيجية. تالولا نسخة تجريبية. شيفون الإصدار ترى المخطط. الزوجات الأوائل مجال للتجارب، النماذج اللاحقة محسنة، لكن الأكثر رعبا ليس هذا. حتى بعد الطلقات يبقى ماسك وتالولا أصدقاء، يحتفلون بعيد الهالوين معا في عام 2022، يضحكون، يتعانقون، كما لو أن 4 سنوات من الألعاب النفسية مجرد تدريب. زي ما لو أن تالولا اجتازت اختبار الولاء لكنها لم تصل إلى مستوى أم أطفالها. هي صامتة مثل الجميع الذين اقتربوا من ماسك، مثل جاستن اللي حصلت على 20 مليون مقابل الصمت، مثل جرايمز اللي تصفه بأنه معقد ولكنه عبقري. هل ما زلتم تصدقون أن هؤلاء النساء غادرن بإرادتهن أم أجبرن على النسيان؟ 2024 تتزوج تالولا من نجم لعبة العروش. ماسك يهنئها على تويتر. لا غيرة ولا أي تلميح للعاطفة، كما لو أنها مادة مستهلكة، ما لو أن زواجها جزء من سيناريو. للأسف ليس كل شيء في حياتنا يسير وفق السيناريو. في مواقف مختلفة، مش بس الدراما العائلية بل أيضا المشاكل اليومية، التسريحات، الشجارات، الحوادث. لقد تعرضت لحادث سير في أمريكا ولا تعرف ماذا تفعل بعد ذلك. إلى أين تتوجه لطلب المساعدة؟ أين تجد محاميا مؤهلا؟ كيف تحصل على تعويض إذا لم يكن لديك تأمين؟ شركة حوادث أمريكا ساعدت في الحصول على تعويضات بقيمة 21 مليون لعملائها. هنا ستجد بالتأكيد إجابات على جميع الأسئلة التي تهمك. الرابط في الوصف. القرن 21. نحن نعيش في عالم حيث اسم الطفل ليس مجرد علامة، بل هو شفرة. كل حرف هو مفتاح لرمز سري. XH8 أو XH Archangel 12. هذا ليس اسما، إنها لغز ألقي على البشرية كتحدي. 2020. إيلون ماسك وغرايمز يقدمان للعالم ابنهما، لكنه ليس طفلا، إنه بيان. لنبدأ بفك الشفرة. X متغير غير معروف، رمز اللانهاية. A اندماج الذكاء الاصطناعي والحب. B لمن صرحت غرايمز. A12 طائرة استطلاع أسرع من الصوت من لوكهيد التي يسميها ماسك كمال الهندسة. بس إن هذه هي النسخة الرسمية، السر الحقيقي أعمق. A الحرف الأول من الأبجدية. 12 عدد الطلاب في المدرسة السرية لماسك. مصادفة أم أن الطفل في سلسلة من 12 نموذجا؟ لكن هذا ليس كل شيء. بعد شهر من الولادة يتم تغيير الاسم إلى XAEABZ. السبب قوانين كاليفورنيا تحظر الأرقام في الأسماء. ماسك لا يستسلم، يجد ثغرة ويستبدل الرقم 12 بحروف رومانية. هذا ليس تنازلا، إنها لعبة. إنه يظهر أن حتى القوانين ليست عائقا أمام إرادته. هل تعتقد أن هذا تمرد ضد النظام أم اختبار لمعرفة إلى أي مدى يمكنه الذهاب؟ والآن انظروا إلى التفاصيل. ولد XH812 في ذروة الجائحة. العالم توقف ومسك يطلق منتجا جديدا. طفل اسمه يبدو ككلمة مرور لخادم سكاي نت. طفل يأخذه إلى اجتماع في البيت الأبيض حيث يمسح مخاطه على طاولة ترامب. هل ترون هنا البراءة أم استعراض للقوة؟ انظروا كما لو أن مسكا يقول ابني يمكنه فعل كل شيء، حتى قوانينكم له مجرد غبار. غرايمز تعترف لاحقا. أردت أن يبدو اسمه كتعويذة سبرانية. تعويذة، طقوس، تكريس. لمن؟ للعالم الجديد حيث أطفال مسكة ليسوا بشرا بل واجهات بين البيولوجيا والآلة. هو نفسه يسمي ابنه إكس، يختصره لمتغير في معادلة. لكن الأمر الأكثر رعبا، ينمو الرماد X12 تحت الكاميرات. بدأ طفولته سلسلة من الظهور العلني، إطلاق الصواريخ، معارض تسلا، تغريدات الأب مع هاشتاج قائد المستقبل. لا ألعاب، لا أصدقاء، فقط تدريبات على الروبوتات ودروس في الفيزياء الكمية. هل ما زلتم تعتقدون أن هذا هو تربية العبقري؟ أم هو تشكيل الوعي ليتناسب مع احتياجات الشركة؟ والآن السؤال، إذا كان الاسم كلمة مرور، ما اللي ستفتحه هذه الكلمة؟ قاعدة، بيانات نيورالينك، الوصول إلى المستعمرات المريخية، أم باب إلى عالم حيث يصبح أطفال ماسك الآلهة الجدد؟ تخيل مدرسة بدون أجراس، بدون كتب دراسية، بدون درجات، حيث يقوم الأطفال بتفكيك المحركات بدلا من دروس الرياضيات، حيث تكون أخلاقيات الذكاء الاصطناعي هي المادة الرئيسية. أوسترا الأكاديمية السرية لماسك. الاسم يترجم إلى النجوم، ولكن إلى أين تقود هذه الطريق حقا؟ تأسست في عام 2014. الموقع حرم مغلق في كاليفورنيا. الطلاب هم أطفال ماسك وموظفي سبيس إكس، أمات والعباقرة المختارون. لا توجد فصول دراسية ولا امتحانات. بدلا من ذاك حالات من الحياة الواقعية. كيف يمكن استعمار المريخ بميزانية قدرها 10 مليارات؟ قم بإنشاء خوارزمية لإدارة سرب من الطائرات بدون طيار. الأطفال في سن 7 سنوات يناقشون حول تشكيل الكواكب، والأطفال في سن 10 سنوات يصممون الصواريخ. ترى هنا التقدم أو عقل الطفل المثقل بالمهام الشاقة. ماسك يسميها تعليم حل المشكلات. لكن انظر بعمق أكثر. المدرسة نسخة طبق الأصل من شركاته، مواعيد نهائية صارمة، عروض تقديمية للمستثمرين، منافسة على لقب الأكثر ابتكارا. الأطفال لا يتعلمون بل يعملون. ألعابهم، محاكاة لعمليات الأعمال، استراحتهم، وتأملات لإدارة التوتر. هل ما زلت تعتقد أن هذه مدرسة أم معسكر تدريب لمستقبلهم؟ والآن التفاصيل الهادئة. فأد أسترا لا توجد دروس، لا موسيقى، لا أدب، لا فن. هذا غير مفيد، يصرح ماسك. بدلا من ذلك هناك دورات في التلاعب بالحمض النووي وواجهات الأعصاب. في 10 يتعلمون تحرير جينات ذباب الفاكهة. في 12 يجمعون نماذج أولية لرقائق نيورالينك. هل تعتقد أن هذا تعليم؟ أم تجنيد مبكر في مشاريع سرية؟ لكن الأهم هو السيطرة. كل صباح يخضع الطلاب لمسح بيومتري. كل خطوة يتم تسجيلها بواسطة كاميرات مزودة بتحليل الذكاء الاصطناعي لأغراض الأمان، زي ما يقول المعلمون. لكن في وثائق المدرسة تم العثور على إشارات إلى بروتوكولات التطوير المعرفي وتحسين الروابط العصبية. يبدو وكأنه خيال علمي. تذكروا نيورالينك بالفعل تختبر الرقائق على القرود. ما الذي يمنع اختبارها على الأطفال؟ اسألوا فيفيان. هي الوحيدة اللي هربت من النظام، لكن صمتها أعلى من الصراخ. في مقابلة أولى هناك فقط مهمة لم يختاروها. وإليكم اللمسة الأخيرة. خريجو أسترا لا يلتحقون بالجامعات، إنهم يتوجهون مباشرة إلى سبيس إكس وتسلا ونيورالينك. سيرتهم الذاتية ليست درجات بل مشاريع وافق عليها ماس. هل ما زلتم تؤمنون بمستقبل مشرق؟ أم ترون خط إنتاج حيث الأطفال هم الشركات الناشئة الحية؟ $1,000,000. منزل في بيل إير. صمت. جاستن ويلسون الزوجة الأولى لماسك حصلت على كل هذا مقابل الاختفاء من تاريخه. لكن ما الذي يختبئ وراء الأرقام؟ هل تعتقدون أنها تعويض عادل أم ثمن لصمت صوتها في الهدوء؟ تذكروا كلماتها: لقد حولني إلى آلة لإنجاب الأطفال. 6 ولادات في 8 سنوات. وفاة الطفل البكر. التلقيح الصناعي. توأم 3 توائم. جسدها ميدان لتجاربه الجينية، وعقلها نفسيتها المتصدعة التي تجاهلها كما لو كانت خللا في البرمجيات. عندما حاولت التحدث عن الاكتئاب أجاب ماسك: سأحلها كمشكلة هندسية. لكن لم يكن هناك حل. فقط أوامر، فقط جداول التغذية وتتبع نوم الأطفال. 20 مليون مش هدية، إنها حساب. مبلغ يبدو ضخما لكنه يمثل فقط 4.3% من ثروته. منزل، قفص بقضبان ذهبية. بعد الطلاق اختفت جاستن. لا مقابلات، لا مذكرات، ولا تلميح للحقيقة. وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي الخاصة بها فارغة، ومدونتها عن الأمومة محذوفة. مصادفة أم شروط الصفقة. ولكن هناك فارق بسيط. في عام 2022 تم رصدهم معا في عيد الهالوين. كانت تبتسم، كان يحتضنها، كما لو أن شيئا لم يحدث، كما لو أن 20 مليون لم تشتري الصمت بل موافقتها على لعب دور صديقة العائلة. هل تصدقون هذه اللعبة أم ترونها مسرحية حيث جاستن رهينة مجبرة على إظهار الولاء؟ والآن أعمق، حياتها الحالية مكرسة للأعمال الخيرية. تساعد الأمهات التي فقدن أطفالهن، لكنها لم تذكر ماسك ولو مرة واحدة. لم تقل كلمة واحدة عما مرت به، حتى أن مؤسستها الخيرية تتجنب الأسئلة حول سبيس إكس، تسلا ونيورالينك. هل ما زلتم تعتقدون أنها حرة؟ أم أن قلبها الذهبي مقيد بعقود عدم الإفشاء؟ وإليكم السؤال الرئيسي: إذا كانت 20 مليون هي ثمن الصمت، فما الذي تعرفه جاستن؟ عن الأطفال البدلاء؟ عن المختبرات؟ أم عن أن ماسك وصف زواجهما بالمرحلة الأولى من المشروع؟ فبراير 2021. شيفون زيليس مديرة شركة نيورالينك تنشر منشورا: سيلدون ليكورغ، اسم يبدو كأنه حكم، المشرع اليوناني القديم اللي أنشأ مجموعة من القواعد الصارمة لأسبرطة. مصادفة أم تلميح بأن هذا الطفل هو مهندس النظام الجديد؟ شيفون ليست زوجة ولا عشيقة، إنها موظفة. الشخص الذي ساعد ماسك في زرع الرقائق في أدمغة القرود، والآن تنجب طفله الرابع. لم تبدأ علاقتهما بالرومانسية. وفقا للشائعات عرض ماسك عليها أن تكون شركته البيولوجية بعد أن طلبت متبرعا بالحيوانات المنوية. حساب بارد، لا مواعيد ولا خواتم، فقط عقد ومهمة. سيلدون ليكورغ ليس مجرد وريث، إنه رمز. اسمه يحمل رمزا الانضباط، السلطة، القسوة. أبناء ماسك الأكبر كزافير إكس، أش إيه 12 إكسا هم جزء من النظام، لكن سيلدون مستوى جديد. لقد ولد من امرأة تعرف كيف يعمل نيورالينك، اللي تحسن وجهات الدماغ الآلة يوميا. هل تعتقدون أنها أضيفت حمضها النووي، شيء ما في جيناته، أم أن الطفل مبرمج مسبقا للاندماج مع الذكاء الاصطناعي؟ والآن انظروا إلى التواريخ. قبل أسبوعين من ولادة سيلدون، الكاتبة أشلي سانت كلير تعلن: لدي ابن من ماسك. يرد الملياردير بكلمة واحدة: واو، لا تأكيدات ولا نفي. كما لو أنه ليس طفلا بل خيار في عقد، كما لو أنه الوريث الرابع عشر، ليس الحد الأقصى. لكن لما شيفون؟ لماذا ليست جرايمز ولا جاستن ولا تالولا؟ الإجابة في سيرتها الذاتية. خريجة جامعة ييل، متخصصة في علم الأعصاب، امرأة يقارن معدل ذكائها بأينشتاين. ماسك لا يختار الأم فقط بل يصمم الجينوم. سيلدون هو نتاج معادلة، عبقري زائد عبقري يساوي إنسان خارق. واللمسة الأخيرة في منشور عن الولادة تكتب: شيفون عنده قلب ذهبي. نفس الكلمات اللي قالتها جاستن عن نيفادا الراحل. الدورة تتكرر، لكن الآن القلب الذهبي ليس مجرد استعارة بل هو هدف، ربما حرفيا شريحة من الذهب والتيتانيوم مزروعة في القفص الصدري. هل ما زلت تعتقد أنه مجرد طفل أم ترى نموذجا أوليا؟ الأول من جيل سيتنفس على المريخ ويدير الصواريخ بقوة الفكر وينسى ما هي الدموع. تخيل مخبأ مش مجرد منزل بل قلعة، 3 طوابق تحت الأرض، مختبرات بإضاءة زرقاء، وغرف أطفال مزودة بكاميرات مراقبة. مطبخ مشترك حيث تعد أمهات ماسك الطعام وفقا لوصفات محسوبة بيومتريا. الشائعات حول المجمع العائلي في تكساس ليست خيالا، إنه خطوة منطقية لشخص يؤمن بأن العائلة يجب أن تعمل مثل شركة ناشئة. أقل قدر من الحرية وأقصى قدر من الكفاءة. بدأ البناء في عام 2028 بعد انتقال ماسك لتكساس. رسميا منزل صديق للبيئة لعائلة كبيرة، غير رسميا قلعة. وفقا لمصادر داخلية يشتمل المجمع على أنفاق تحت الأرض تؤدي إلى مختبرات سرية لشركة سبيس إكس، قاعات للاجتماعات العائلية مع هولوغرامات لمستعمرات المريخ، غرف نوم الأطفال مزودة بأجهزة استشعار تراقب مراحل النوم ومستوى الكورتيزول. لكن القواعد أكثر رعبا من التكنولوجيا. وفقا للتسريبات وقعت جميع أمهات ماسك عقودا تلزمهن بالعيش في المجمع لمدة لا تقل عن 300 يوم سنويا. يتعلم الأطفال في مدرسة ايدي أسترا عبر خوذات الواقع الافتراضي حتى لا يتشتتوا بالعالم الخارجي. نزهاتهم بجدول صارم تحت مراقبة الطائرات بدون طيار. هل تعتقدون أن هذا اهتمام أم حجر صحي لعينات بشرية؟ والآن فكروا جيدا، لماذا يجمع ماسك جميع الأطفال والأمهات في مكان واحد؟ الإجابة مخفية في تغريدته. العائلة هي فريق، يجب أن يكون الفريق موحدا. لكن فريق من أجل ماذا؟ من أجل استعمار المريخ أم لإنشاء نظام بيئي مغلق حيث يصبح الأطفال أول مواطني العرق الجديد؟ تزداد الشائعات بعد التصريح. شيفون زيلس: نريد أن ينشأ الأطفال في بيئة مليئة بالحب والعلم. العلم نعم، لكن أين الحب؟ لا توجد رسومات للأطفال في ممرات المجمع، لا توجد ألعاب، هناك فقط جدران عارية مع شاشات تعرض محاضرات عن الفيزياء الكمية. حتى الهواء هنا يتم ترشيحه بطريقة تحفز الوظائف الإدراكية. والتفصيل الأخير: في عام 2024 يقدم ماسك براءة اختراع لنظام التربية المشتركة. في الوثائق توجد مخططات لتدوير الأطفال بين الأمهات لتحسين التطور العاطفي. هل ما زلت تؤمن بالدفء العائلي؟ أم ترى خط إنتاج حيث الأمهات مديرات المشاريع والأطفال هم المنتج؟ لقد هربت. لم تذهب فقط بل تبخرت. فيفيان جين ويلسون التي كانت سابقا الابن الأكبر لماسك أصبحت شبحا. في سن 16 غيرت اسمها، تبرأت من والدها وضاعت في عالم حيث اسم ماسك ليس لقبا بل لعنة. لكن هروبها ليس نهاية القصة، إنه مفتاح للغز. لماذا فعلت ذلك؟ الإجابات مخبأة في التفاصيل. في طفولتها كان يطلق عليها كالزافير القائد الجديد. كتب ماسك صورها على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي في نفس الأزياء بوجه جامد. تعليمها كان في مدرسة إد أسترا حيث تم استبدال الدروس بحالات عن استعمار الكواكب. لكن في سن 14 حدث شيء ما. بدأت تطرح الأسئلة: لماذا يجب أن أنام وفق جدول؟ من قرر أنني سأكون مهندس؟